Welcome back to the channel, guys. My name is Gordon. We are back with another video. Today we have an updated price prediction for Solana by the peak of this cycle. As always, if you enjoy the content, please make sure to smash that thumbs up button below, hit subscribe, hit that bell notification icon, and you've got a completely free copy of The Rise of Bitcoin waiting for you in the description of this video below. My gift to you, make sure to grab that now, and let's talk about Solana. Okay, first and foremost, let's take a look at the Solana chart. We're currently sitting at $225 per Solana at the time of recording here on October 4th. We had a really nice bounce off of this $192 level. We're right up at 225. We did get as high as 237 here in the past 48 hours. We didn't manage to get back up to this $250 level where we got to at the middle of September. And so now we're seeing if Solana is going to ultimately hold above this trend line that we broke below and then smash back above here on the 2nd of October. So let's see what happens over the course of the next few hours. By the time you watch this video, you're probably going to be seeing where price is at. But obviously, Bitcoin making a big move over the past few days, going from 109 up to 121,000, has helped the rest of the market make a nice big move, Solana being one of those, and things are looking solid here on this chart. Again, if we just look at the more macro pattern here, since these lows at the beginning of April, we've been putting in higher lows here all the way up on the chart, which is nice to see. So things are looking solid here at this moment in time from the macro picture. And I've done a macro outlook for Q4, guys. Check that out on the channel, where the entire, global liquidity to more rate cuts projected. The macro picture is looking very strong for Q4 as we move towards the end of the year. And so I think that's going to bode well for Solana as an asset, as a scaling high throughput layer one blockchain to outperform some of these other larger tokens like Bitcoin and Ethereum on a percentage basis. And if we just look at that very, very quickly, we can look at Solana versus Bitcoin here right on TradingView. If we bring up that chart, what you'll notice, let me remove these trend lines, is the fact that obviously, since this kind of low here back in June, we have had Solana substantially outperforming Bitcoin by about 42% over the past 100 days. That is really nice to see. But, we did have a big drawdown for Solana versus Bitcoin during Q1 of this year. Since those highs back in January, we can clearly see that we're still under that level versus Bitcoin by about 30 to 33%. Again, zooming out on the chart here, if we go to a weekly, I do think there's more room for Solana to push up here, moving back towards this level on the chart where we had previous resistance versus Bitcoin. Again, on a percentage basis, I think that means we could see Solana outperforming Bitcoin, by possibly somewhere in the region of 40 to 60%. As we move into a bit more of an altcoin season, we can also see that Solana reclaimed the 200-day versus Bitcoin here by the time we got to the middle of August. And this level here has been holding as a nice amount of support over the past 4 to 6 weeks. So I think there's more room for Solana to move versus Bitcoin on a percentage basis. Yes, we had this drawdown during Q1, but if we can come back up to retest these areas, that means about 40 to 60% outperformance over the next few months, in my opinion. If we also look at Solana's main competitor, bringing up the Ethereum chart versus Solana, again, we're looking at Solana slightly outperforming Ethereum over the past few weeks. If we go back to these lows here at the beginning of August, Solana has outperformed Ethereum by about 22%. Similar trend to Bitcoin, though, because we saw Ethereum making such a big move at the end of April for a few months, technically speaking, Solana is still down versus Ethereum by about 40% over the past 161 days. But zooming out even further, the clear trend here is substantial outperformance of Solana versus Ethereum since the previous cycle lows. You're looking at outperformance of almost 600%, even to today's prices, by Solana versus Ethereum. And so things are looking nice on this chart, having gotten a bounce and gotten support at this 0.04 area. Moving back up here, I'd love to see us reclaiming the 200-day. We were obviously overbought here for a substantial period for Solana versus Ethereum. And so I think if we can reclaim the 200-day here, we will see Solana moving higher. Stay tuned, guys. I am going to get to the price prediction in just a moment. The other important thing I always love to check out is the on-chain technical analysis, daily active addresses, daily transactions, stablecoin supply on-chain. What we're seeing here is Solana is still by far and away doing the largest amount of daily active addresses, even though we are in a little bit of a downtrend. You know, it was substantially higher here. This is looking at the past year to date. So going all the way back to the beginning of January 2025, we were consistently seeing, well, obviously peak active addresses in January up at this kind of 8 million daily active addresses. Although pretty consistently here through February and March, we were still hovering, you know, between 4 to 6 million daily active addresses on Solana, even getting up as high here as, once again, that 7 million daily active addresses by the time we got to June. But we've been in a little bit of a downtrend, and that's clear to see. We're closer to kind of 3 to 4 million daily active addresses over the past couple of months. Let's see if that's going to pick up in Q4. But daily transactions, Solana is still blowing everything out of the water by a factor of, you know, 20x here. You're looking on the chart here, certain days Solana is literally doing 20 times more daily transactions compared to the nearest competitor, which in this chart right now is Near Protocol. Sui's had some really nice growth as well, obviously, but even more recently, you're looking at Solana doing, you know, 60 to 80 million daily transactions and Sui doing 4.5 as the nearest competitor. And so you're still looking at 20x outperformance in terms of daily transactions happening on Solana. Stablecoin growth has been another big one for Solana. I'm just going to remove Ethereum here because we know the largest amount of stablecoins are obviously on Ethereum. But when you look at Solana being that next best competitor, we've gone from about $5 billion in stablecoins on Solana up to over $15 billion worth of tokenized stablecoins on Solana's network. That has tripled since January of this year, probably more than any other network. And you're seeing Solana become a go-to legitimate alternative versus Ethereum for a lot of stuff happening in DeFi. So this is exciting to see. TVL, obviously, in terms of the amount of capital locked on Solana, we know Ethereum makes up the bulk of everything happening on DeFi, but Solana is the next best competitor with about $12 billion of TVL there as well. So exciting to see all of that activity, very strong from an on-chain technical analysis perspective. And the other big area we're seeing adoption with on Solana is tokenized stocks. I did some specific videos on this on the channel. Make sure to go and check those out because you're seeing a huge burst in activity with purchasing of tokenized stocks. You can now use X stocks derivatives just like Tesla, Nvidia, the S&P. You can purchase all of those stocks in a self-custody non-KYC manner directly from your Solana wallet. With the launch of X stocks back in July, we've seen explosive growth happening with all that and tokenized stocks directly on chain for Solana. So that is exciting. The next thing to look at is that we do have some pending Solana ETF approvals coming up this month in the next few days. In fact, the final SEC deadline for a number of these Solana ETFs is on the 10th of October, and you're going to see some approvals very likely happening over the next few days. Do I think Solana needs an ETF in order to continue moving higher? Not necessarily, but it will act as fuel for the fire of Solana and help price move upwards if we do get approvals coming in October and more into November for those ETFs. And again, keep the 10th of October earmarked for news about the approval from the SEC. So that is exciting. That is happening here over the next few days. So keep tuned for that. Finally, guys, bringing us on to the most important part you've been waiting for, the price targets for where I think Solana can get to by the peak of this cycle. Remember, there are specific variables I have to plug into this equation. So feel free to play around with these variables yourself. Again, this is not financial advice. Always do your own research. But my bear case has total crypto market cap peaking at $5 trillion. If Solana can get up to 4.2% dominance, and I don't think we looked at dominance yet on the video, but if we jump into Solana dominance, we're sitting right at 3%. Again, we got right up to that 4% level here back in January of 2025. And so for Solana to get up to somewhere around 4.2% by the peak, I don't think is too far of a stretch, given we were just under 4% a few months ago. That's going to give us about a $210 billion market cap. Dividing it by 542 million tokens in circulation brings us to a $387 price target for Solana by the peak of the cycle in my bear case scenario. Okay, next up, we've got the base case. My base case is total crypto market cap peaking closer to $7 trillion. If Solana can get up to 4.8% dominance, that's going to give us a $336 billion market cap. Once again, dividing it by 542 million tokens gets us to a $620 price target for Solana in my base case by the peak of this cycle. Finally, last but not least, bull case scenario, my most bullish outlook is total crypto market cap peaking up at 9 trillion US dollars. If Solana can get all the way up to 5.2% dominance, that gets us to a $486 billion market cap. Once again, dividing it by tokens in circulation gets us to an $863 price target for Solana by the peak of the cycle in my most bullish case scenario. Is that the most likely scenario? I'm not sure. I think the base case is a reasonable target based on where total crypto market cap could go with the macro outlook over the next few months, more rate cuts, potentially some QE beginning to happen, and the macro setup looking really, really nice. That is it for today's video, guys. As always, if you enjoyed the Solana price prediction update, please take 3 seconds, smash that thumbs up button below. Let's do it right now. Under my finger, smash that thumbs up button, please. It helps to spread the good word on the channel. Make sure to subscribe, hit that bell notification icon, and like I said, you've got a completely free copy, my gift to you. Grab the Rise of Bitcoin in the description of this video, and we'll catch you in the next one.